I think it's finally time, TCG and Star Wars Unlimited fans, for us to finally check out Boba Yellow. This was one of the many decks some people really played around with in the meta of Django Tarkatown, thanks to the power of Triple Dark Raid. Of course, Boba Fett is the starter deck leader from JTL. It was a deck that was being played around a lot of. It was the deck taking use of the new indirect mechanic. So, in a good contention in the meta, sort of, because again, Django Tarkatown really was the meta-defiant deck. But this deck is still very good even in today's meta, thanks to all that indirect damage that goes through shields, goes through everything, and it's a nuisance for a lot of opponents to have to deal with. Especially if they don't have units, it all just goes to the base, so basically it's just damage going to the base. But also it's a nuisance because if your opponent doesn't want to damage units, they have to put it on the base. So it's a very unique leader a lot of people have not liked. But anyways, let's check out the leader, and let's check out the deck. So anyways, Boba Fett states on his unawakened side, again, I'm calling it unawakened side, but his non-epic side, when you deal non-combat damage, so that's any damage that is not combat related, that is indirect damage, that is damage from like a when played ability, that is anything like even like open fire, anything that doesn't deal combat damage. You may exhaust the leader. If you do, it deal 1 direct damage to a player, so really nice. He awakens at 6. He can awaken as a leader for 4/7, just a vanilla leader, or you can place him onto a onto a ship as a 4/4. When he deploys, then he can deal damage 4 damage divided your choice. So he deploys, and then he can deal 4 damage anywhere to onto the field of his choice. So not a bad thing to do, like some chipping indirect damage, then come out, and then mainly just deal that damage divided. Of course, we're just playing a good old vanilla base here in Jabba's Palace. Any yellow vanilla base works out. For the rest of the deck, we have a triple First Order Stormtrooper. On attack, when defeated, deal 1 indirect damage to a player. Again, that combines really well with Boba. We're running 2 Cloud Rider for the ambush, and then 3 Guerrilla Soldiers. When played, deal 3 indirect damage to a player. If they decide to hit the base, you just get to stand them up. We're not really mining much of a ground package. We are definitely in the space realm. In the space, we have triple TIE Bomber on attack, deal 3 indirect damage to the defending player. Triple Zengarian Starhopper, when defeated, deal 2 indirect damage to a player. Triple Droid Missile Platform, when defeated, deal 3 indirect damage to a player. Triple of Fett's Fire Spray from JTL, when played on attack, deal 1 indirect damage to a player. If you control Boba Fett as a unit, upgrade, or a leader, we will control him as a leader. Deal 2 indirect damage instead. So basically on an attack, it is 4 damage and 2 indirect damage. So in essence, if if your opponent doesn't have anything on the board, it's 6 indirect damage to their base. And then because that's indirect damage, then you can trigger Boba to push another one. So that's also very good. We have Hunting Aggressor. Indirect damage dealt to your opponent is increased by 1, where most of our things are dealing 1 indirect damage. If we have this out, they can start dealing 2 indirect damage. We have triple IG-2000. Overwhelming when played, deal 1 damage to each of 3 units. A really good thing here, also, if you're wondering, is you can use War Juggernaut, a combination with IG-2000, because then War Juggernaut can deal even more damage, and IG-2000 already deal damage, because War Juggernaut gets a +1 to his attack for each damaged unit on the board, yours and your opponent's. So it's really nice. Double of the Fett's Fire Spray from Spark of Rebellion. When played, you control Boba Fett or Jango Fett, unit or a leader, ready this unit, and in action, exhaust a non-unique unit. We're not really going to use that. We're just playing this for that to push that last 5 damage on the board. Double Ruthless Raider, when played, when defeated, deal 2 damage to an enemy base, and then 2 damage to an enemy unit. Again, that is non-combat damage, so that does allow us to trigger Boba Fett. We're running 2 Radiant 7, each enemy non-leader unit gets -1 for each damage on it, which means chip damaging all of these little indirect damages can add up to our opponent if they're just not throwing them on their base and putting them on your units. It's a little worse than Snoke, in my opinion, but it's still a ship that deals 5, and then when played, deal 5 indirect damage to a player, which again is not bad. And then we have a triple Devastator as UI, assign all the indirect damage. So basically we can get more indirect damage going on in the late game. The Devastator allows me to deal with it all, and then now just direct it to my opponent's base. And then when played, we deal 4 indirect damage to each opponent. And again, we assign that indirect damage that the Devastator causes because of the Devastator's innate effect. For our events, we got triple Daring Raid. Again, we do get to then activate Boba here, deal 2 damage to unit at the base. 2, No Good to Me Dead, to exhaust the unit they can't ready this round, even during the regrouping phase. Double Sneak Attack to play a unit from our hand, it costs 3 less and enters play ready at the start of the regrouping phase, delete it. This isn't too bad to do some stuff like with Ruthless Raider or anything like that. Just to bring something in, swing in for damage, and then maybe kill it off, because Ruthless Raider, as a reminder, when defeated, does that extra 2 damage and 2 damage. So, not a bad thing. Double Surprise Strike to member, attack with a unit gets +3/+0 for this attack. Double Waylay to return a non-unit leader to the hand. And then double Planetary Bombardment, because we do have a good swath of capital ships, deal 8 indirect damage to a player. Then if you control a capital ship, deal 12 indirect damage, which is really, really nice. So we have now the Devastator, which is a capital class vessel. We can do all 12 to the base. Just to show you, the Radiant, the Ruthless are basically our capital class vessels. So we only have this many capital class, but typically we want to put out Devastator and then do Planetary Bombardment. But again, Planetary Bombardment is still very good even at F6, just because then we can trigger Boba Fett off of it as well. But we do have also this ability of targeting computer. Attach unit gains assign all indirect damage dealt by this unit. So basically we can also attach that really nice to Fett's Fire Spray, so that we can always have Fett's Fire Spray dealing the indirect damage from its attack. So that's typically where we want to direct it to, because everything else it doesn't matter, because again, we assign all indirect damage dealt by this unit. So we can't just attach it to something, go Planetary Bombardment like a Radiant, and then go Planetary Bombardment and have like a target computer on it, because again, we're not assigning the indirect damage like the Devastator allows us. We just assign indirect damage from that ship. So we're putting it mostly on Fett's Fire Spray. So that is our Boba Yellow deck. Let's take it to Carabas and see how well we do. Alright, here we go, folks. Asajj Data Vault. Now, I played a lot of Asajj Ventress at my locals. She's a tapper, deal 1 damage to a friendly unit, and if you do, deal 1 damage to an enemy in the same arena. Then at 6 or more resources, you can choose 1 deployer as a grit leader at 4/6, or you can deploy her on a pilot on a vehicle at 3/4. And then while she's on piloting a vehicle, she can damage the vehicle to then continue to get that grit effect. She's a grit leader on her awakened side. As we look at her hand, I think we are going to keep. We can go the Devastator and a Bomber. I think maybe the first thing to play here is probably the TIE Bomber. Again, they are running the data vault, so they have 60 cards. It is green, so this is actually really good. Because Asajj just says damage a unit, what you can really do in this deck is you can play out the Super Laser Tech and then damage the Super Laser Tech with Asajj and then just knock out the Super Laser Tech. Okay, let's throw out the Bomber. Again, Asajj could take a damage to the Brute to damage the Bomber. So that's not apparently happening. All right, we will do this away. This is also not a very good matchup for Boba, because this is a grit leader. Literally meaning that the deck that this person is playing is almost all grit based. A lot of the cards that they're going to be playing are all grit. And so when you're playing a deck that's indirect damage, it's not exactly a great thing to be swinging all your indirect damage on a bunch of grit things. So anyways, we're going to swing. We literally attack the base because I'm not attacking to deal 2 damage to myself. And then that is 3 then damage. Technically, they could just kill the TIE Brute and technically heal nothing off. But again, it's their choice. So we will then trigger the leader. My opponent has to deal with and take 1 more indirect damage. Alright. We're probably going to put out the Gorillas on the ground. Resupply, which is a really good card. Let's go the Gorillas. My opponent is now going to take 3 indirect damage. If they hit the base once, I get to restand. So, okay, so they hit the base. We'll now swing on the base, and we will then pass. Funny enough, you could strike true a TIE Bomber. I don't think that's really going to be useful. thinking here, I think, honestly, the Devastator probably... oh, shoot, that's our second Devastator. Blech. Oh, man, that was my bad, man. Make sure to check your energy resources, kids, before you do anything like that. We'll swing there. I'm thinking our best thing here is to drop the droid missile platform. Because we can then do stuff with that. But yeah, that actually putting that second Devastator, it probably should have been the Strike True. Power of the Dark Side, all right. Put this out. Wish we had actually the Power of the Dark Side. I would have killed this droid missile platform off and forced the extra 2 damage. Forced the 3 indirect damage on him. And kept the ground a little bit on the more pleasant side. We will claim the initiative. The hunting is actually really nice too. I think we'll go the Strike True. I don't think we're gonna need that right now. Let's go the hunting. Because if he does another Power of the Dark Side, we will just kill off the droid missile platform, and then that allows then the hunting aggressor to trigger, which means that we basically is increased by 1, so we'll actually be doing 4 indirect damage off the death of this thing. Perilous to knock it out. He does still have to resolve the trigger. It's a when defeated trigger, so it does not matter. And now he has to take also additional, so 3 indirect damage from the droid missile platform. Because the Perilous did knock it out, but again, nothing they can really do about it. It's an on-death trigger, so that still goes through. So the question is, what do they want to kill? Okay, then we will trigger the leader opponent. And then remember, all our indirect damage is increased by 1 as well. We'll throw down this guy. And then next turn, we can literally drop this, even though we don't have a way. Asajj can attach to a vehicle as well. So there is that chance. Again, we can also throw Boba on the ground and just have him as a ground force, because as right now, there isn't really much of a ground presence. So this is probably going to swing into, swinging into the hunting aggressor. So that is a whole lot of damage. That is 10 now attack points that thing now has. We'll do a Stargarian Hopper. Let's go. Asajj actually is a dangerous thing right now for us. Let's see. What do we want to do? Planetary Bombardment to deal 8 indirect damage. Fet's Fire Spray, opponent. Well, no, actually, no. If they keep the Fet's Fire Spray alive, I actually do kill this Asajj. Now we are dangerously dead because Asajj is at a 10, and they're not going to kill Asajj here at all. So, I mean, there's no way we're going to get out of that one. Yeah, it kind of sucks that we ran into an Asajj leader because basically it's 1 more, so 11 damage coming at base. Okay, well, that hurt, but we can now deploy Fet. We can now kill off Asajj, kill that off, and that's all we're really going to do. They do get the heal 2 off of the Brute, but nothing we're going to do about that. We can re-put that damage on thanks to this. And then they do get to then look at the 2, so they chose to move 1 card to the bottom, 1 card to the top. That is annoying to see the Vader now, but it makes sense that they got the Vader going. Okay, I'm pretty impressed with this deck. Pretty impressed, but then again, it's just a mass amount of crit damage. That's all this deck is doing. It's just doing It's just getting out a bunch of guys who get grit and then triggering Asajj to do that extra grit. The question is he going... Okay, so he's going to go take the 2. Opponent needs to take an extra indirect damage there. Unfortunately, it went right on to something I really don't want to be having indirect damage. We will just pass. The Waylay will be pretty good on the Vader. So I think, honestly, I don't think we're going to do anything here. We can do up to 10, get this to 23. It just kind of matters what this Asajj player decides to do. If they decide to go... Okay, so they just super laser blast everything. Was not expecting the super laser blast. That is for sure. So we're going to deal 2 indirect damage to our opponent, and then we are going to trigger the bounty so we can get the draw. That's all pretty nice. We're going to go Planetary Bombardment immediately onto our opponent. They have to take all of that onto their hide. And then we will pass. I'm actually surprised on the Super Laser. I mean, sure, I had my leader up and running, but I'm just kind of confused on the entirety of wanting to use the Super Laser. That's fine that we leave it. I don't think we need another resource right now. An Avenger. Okay. Which is not great. How do we deal with the Avenger? Oh my gosh, I actually don't know how we're dealing with the Avenger. Like at all. I don't have anything right now except I literally have to claim. I literally can't do anything. I literally have to claim and figure out how I'm going to out an Avenger. Don't think a Cloud Rider right now is going to be helpful. I mean, technically next turn I can do it. Because I can only ever hound out one Avenger. I mean, I guess I'll waylay it back. I mean, if they want to play it again, it burns all their resources. At that point, I could put out Fett's Fire Spray. I don't know. I really don't know how I'm going to out this Avenger. The only thing I can think is literally we just have to literally let the Avenger attack. And then I have to bring out Fett's Fire Spray, give it Strike True to just kill it off. Yeah, that's literally what I have to do. That's literally what I have to do to get this thing dead. We're going to soft pass for right now. Like, that's the only thing I can think. But the problem is if they have another Avenger in hand, there's just like no way I'm outing the Avengers. That is just too big of a ship for me to out. Actually, yeah, they got it. I don't have a way to out that Avenger. Yeah, I don't have a way to out the Avenger. Well, folks, it's a little sad that we lost. But then again, when you gotta deal with an Avenger and no board state or anything like that, there's not much we can do. Once they Super Laser Blast, I get it. They just drop the Avenger. They control the board state. There's not much else we can really do. I mean, the Avenger controls absolutely everything. I mean, if they didn't have a way to use Power of the Dark Side, I mean, we could have easily gone Fett's Fire Spray, Strike, and then swing in, knock out the Avenger. But again, the basis is it's still green, so that still leaves Devastator, the green Devastator. That leaves another Avenger coming down on the board. So, I mean, I didn't really see the win there. And you know what? I think this deck's okay. I think without Triple Dark Raid, it definitely got hurt a bit. I don't think it has at the power level we saw before. Maybe I did make some misplays there, but I mean, once you see an Avenger on an empty board state, there's not much you can do about it. I mean, the Avenger literally swings, liquefies everything. The only thing we could have done there is drop Fett's Fire Spray and then have Fett's Fire Spray go, trigger the effect of Strike True, or Surprise Strike to do anything, or we had like Sneak Attack to like ready something onto the board, but that's still kind of pointless. The problem was they have way too many resources. There wasn't a way for us to deal with the Avenger. So we end up with a loss. Nonetheless, I think this deck is still scary because of all that indirect damage. We didn't really get the Planetary Bombardment off with one of our three main capital class vessels, but this deck can still be scary for a lot of decks, especially because a lot of people might have struggled with figuring out where to put indirect damage if they don't want it all going at their base. Decks like Darth Vader don't really want a lot of indirect damage because, again, they may have to knock out TIE Fighters and stuff like that. Especially if you got out, say, a Devastator, and then if they didn't deal with the Devastator, Planetary Bombardment to deal then all that damage, and then you can pink away all their little guys off the board. So, yeah, I still think this deck is scary. You have to respect that indirect damage and respecting a board state, because a lot of times, and I mean, slowly as your opponent chips into that indirect damage, you deal more and more indirect damage. Your opponent really doesn't have a way to deal with your indirect damaging guys. Slowly over time, you end up with a problem where your opponent's slowly going to just chip themselves to death as they figure out whether to hit the base or hit a unit with indirect damage. So, Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, guys, on Boba Yellow. Do you think this deck has passed its prime without Triple Dark Raid? Without any of that, you think this deck is pretty much maybe fringe for like your store championships if people don't respect it? What cards do you think actually should be in here? Do you think like War Juggernaut should be in here as a ground unit to just push for a little more of that heavy ground damage and all of that? Especially because Darth Vader right now seems to be kind of meta, so dropping a War Juggernaut and then popping all of Vader's TIE Fighters off the board seems pretty nice as well. But let me know all your thoughts down in the comments, also on the gameplay where I could have done better, what you saw that I didn't see, and all of that. And while you're commenting, do make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you can notify when my videos go live for you. And we'll see you here next time on Dragons TCG.